Hi guys, thanks Michelle for having me out. As she mentioned, I'm the co-founder and CEO at Halo Smart Labs. We make the things that make a difference. Yeah, IoT is a fun and explosive topic right now, and we're fortunate to be in a space and in a time where we get to bridge that gap, as she mentioned, between purpose and profitability, where we use technology to find ways to make homes safer around the world. In particular, we focus on some of the most critical incidents around the world, which are fire events. So we're a company that was founded in late 2013. We got started with an innovation fund grant from the IFNC, $25,000 to get off the ground. Here we are 3 years later. The product has demo units in 1,400 Lowe's stores around the country. We partner with some of the biggest names in technology and in humanitarian efforts. Our first product that actually went into the world was a joint effort between Halo Smart Labs, the American Red Cross, and the Kenya Red Cross to deploy a connected fire sensor in some of the most at-risk places in the world. In particular to this group is kind of the timing and why I guess I'm up here to talk about this. Our process and what we go through as an IoT company and how we prove that's so effective specifically in that humanitarian effort. We got a 5-word description. The Red Cross, we met at a national preparedness event and they came and said, we're looking for a low-cost connected fire sensor. Can you do it? And of course, every startup says, yes, we can. So we signed up, we took that 5-word description and we took our fairly well-documented process, even for a startup, and went through the user analysis and then design, development, engineering, actually manufactured all the devices in our facility in Pineville, shipped and delivered and deployed in country in the Mukuru slums of Nairobi in a total of 58 days. So in less than 2 months from a 5-word description to a enabled IoT product using LoRaWAN technology, which is still in its infancy, but this was a device with a custom antenna that could detect smoke, fire, and CO and broadcast an alert to a head end for over 3 miles on 2 AA batteries. Back to that user analysis piece, identification of a hazard is only half of the challenge in those environments. Intervention is the other half. So it was what we did beyond that piece of technology that really made the difference there, and that was delivering that information via text and email and app notification to the local Red Cross, to the American Red Cross, to our team and to local fire brigades with a GPS map overlay so they could see routes to be able to identify and address the fire. So, we took a similar approach with our US product here in the US. Halo and Halo Plus are our consumer products. We've been fortunate to raise about $5 million in venture funding to try and knock Nest off as the most capable smoke alarm in the world. From a technology perspective, they've got better and more sensors. It's got more connectivity flexibility. And all of that you'll notice a trend. This keeps coming back to the user experience. And that's what I want to talk about most, because when we look at challenges in IoT, when you look at the software development process, the experience, UI, UX, when you look at product development, physical product development and value delivery and value creation, IoT is this Frankenstein of both. And a lot of similarities exist, but there are also a lot of differences. A little note on the format here. As you can tell, no PowerPoint, no pyrotechnics, no crazy stuff. I prefer a dialogue. I prefer a conversation. It's hard to imagine everybody took time out of their day without one question that you wanted to have answered by being here. And whether you're willing to vocalize it or not, everybody has an expectation. And even that comes back to identifying the consumer's needs and how we deliver value. So even down to the format of this program, I want to make sure that you guys are getting value out of this. So I'm hoping this will be conversational. I'm hoping this will be dialogue-based. I'll go through a brief overview on the process that worked for us, but I'd also like to hear what challenges you guys see and what from our experience can I share to maybe get you one step closer or avoid one of the pitfalls along the way. Any questions on that so far? I'm not going to move on until somebody has a question. The point of a dialogue. Anybody want to volunteer what they wanted to get out of this?
Yeah, I'll ask a question. Are you selling products that you develop, or are you selling a service to develop an application given any use case that comes to your company?
So we are at our core a product development company. That's what we love to do. It's funny, as a startup, part of it driven by our location on the East Coast, there's a lot more interest in other areas of the country, but bridging the gap between technology and making a physical product, we actually found it difficult to find partners that would assist in that journey. So when you've got a team of young and talented and creative do-it-yourselfers, you know, when we would come to a challenge, we'd try and find a partner, and either cost or time limitations would be there, and we'd say, okay, well, we can find a way to do it, and then we did. And then 3 years later, you wake up with a full SMT and through-hole manufacturing facility and a QA/QC program and a radiation safety officer and multiple contract manufacturers all in the United States. So we started out technically as an OEM that focused on product development. As the products themselves have gained traction, we've engaged in what they would consider ODM relationships, original design manufacturing. When you break it down, you've got, you know, product developers where you design, and then, you know, OEMs, you design it, you make it, you sell it. ODMs, you design it, they make it, they sell it, and then some variation of that in between. So we do engage on both sides. It turns out there's a technical depth in smoke and fire detection that is rare in industry. And the combination of being easy to work with, having a strong technical depth, and flexibility makes us a valuable partner to a lot of the big companies that may have had trouble with other companies in the past.
Do you sense, or are you able to sense other things other than fire detection? Air quality, there's lots of other things that you could detect, water pressure for leaks.
Absolutely. And this kind of goes back to a vision and mission question for us in a lot of ways. As a creative team, there's a lot of great ideas that come in, and there are a ton of opportunities in IoT and the connected technology space, a lot of which would be fun, and some of which could be valuable in the marketplace. For us, when we look at what helps our team overcome the hurdles of working in a startup, you know, it's not easy. It's tough work, and it's long hours, and it's low pay, and it's uncertainty every day. When we look at why people keep coming in, why members of our team become family members, it's because of the why behind our products. And, you know, we've got a 247-step product development process to make a hardware and software connected device that goes to market. The first test anything has to pass is, will it save a life? Because we realize that's what gets us up in the morning, that making the products that make a difference. So, you know, a water sensor. Household flooding is the #1 cause of insurance claims in the United States. Certainly a critical issue for a lot of insurance companies, and a great opportunity for a connected sensor that relays information either to homeowners or insurance companies. But there's a difference between 4 inches of water in your basement and torrential flooding in Central America, and that's where we have to draw the line. We have to focus on the things that we feel will help save a life. So those things get shelved or sent out to other partner companies, and sometimes seeds are planted with other young entrepreneurs. There's still opportunities for those to become real, but with limited time, energy, and money, you have to learn to focus your resources, and we focus on the ones that save lives.
I kind of know the answer to this question, but can you talk about the inception for the idea, like the spark? Where did it come from? Because I know that there was an incident that took place.
Yeah. Several, in fact, and usually I stick with the one that was originally, that was the seed, and that was actually the Joplin Tornado in 2011. My dad lives outside of Joplin. For those of you who don't know, an F5 tornado touched down in downtown Joplin and killed 160 people. When the information started coming in, first with a phone call from my dad, who, you know, just like most people's dads, is the strongest guy I know. And when he calls and relays a harrowing experience about how close he was to the storm, to know that it was like a scene out of the movies, that, you know, he lives on a farm and they don't have a storm cellar. The nearest one is a half mile away. So he and my stepmother running down a dirt road to the neighbor's farm, and by the time they get there, wind's so strong that they can't close the cellar doors, and they watch as this storm destroys his neighbor's farm. You know, obviously a very personal reaction there, And at the time, I was a CTO, director of R&D for a digital advertising company. We specialized in message on hold and digital signage. My job was to find low-cost, high-reliability technology for delivering marketing messaging. And then reports start coming in about one of the primary causes of the loss of life in Joplin was inconsistent or unavailable communication. And I was blown away that I can sell an oil change or a loaf of bread from here to Fresno, but somebody didn't know an F5 tornado was in their neighborhood. And it seemed, it was insane. And I lost my purpose in corporate or marketing. It was no longer a value, that the dollars weren't worth it anymore. Driving incremental sales and ROI seemed like such a silly priority when so much could be done. So we set out to improve weather notifications. That was our simple goal. The first step in our process is to identify the user behavior, the hurdles to adoption. And you hear things like dead batteries, it takes up an outlet, it's on my counter, it's in my tornado bag, false alarms. It's fascinating. I spent a lot of time in Oklahoma City, and there is a certain level of alert fatigue that exists in some of the most high-risk areas. So understanding that, identifying that, and attempting to resolve it using a solution that we put together was all a key piece of the journey. And eventually we landed on a smoke alarm. It made perfect sense from a value proposition perspective. Overhead installation location, persistent power, battery backup, but most importantly, people were used to getting emergency information from this device. The value proposition wasn't one we had to create and educate, it was a natural extension of what people already knew. We're taking a device that's protected you and your family and your home for 30 years, and we're giving it the ability to identify and alert hazards in and around the home. And light bulbs go off, it's easy. And if you can get to a point where that value proposition is clear and concise and understandable without a high level of education, then it's a lot easier to get into those technical functions, those features, those benefits that really drive interest and eventually conversions and adoption. All right, good start? All right. And we've covered most of this. Just going to go into a little operational or tactical detail. So, for us, we break things down: strategic, 3 to 5 years out; operational, 6 to 12 months; and then tactical, what can we do right now? So I wanted to share some of the tactics and tools that helped get us to where we were. By no means do I consider these best practices. To paraphrase Argo, this is the least worst bad way we could find to do things. Understanding needs, that was a key part of our journey. We started the company in 2013, but the first prototype wasn't completed, started in 2011 with ideation and determining this customer interest and then intellectual property. Formally launched the company in 2013. The first prototype didn't come out until 6 to 9 months later. What did we do for that first 2.5 years? And it was identifying the needs. There are a lot of great tools out there, services you can buy, contractors, consultants you can pull in. But for us, when we look at the tools that were most effective for us, it's this. It's conversations. It's being willing to go out and talk to people and asking. And there are different ways to do that, and especially for people who are bridging the gap from idea folks to inventors and inventors to entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs to large-scale business operations. Everybody has their own method. What worked really well for us is identifying the folks on your team that have empathy, that have those soft skills around active listening, that can drive the right questions. And it's incredibly beneficial as a small team with limited resources, because you've got to learn to do it yourself in a lot of cases. So I couldn't hire, we had a great colleague who runs a product development research company, and he put together a great quote, and for $250,000 I could get all my questions answered. I don't have $250,000 when I'm trying to turn an idea into a slightly better idea, not even a product at that point. So identifying the skill sets in your team and your group and your circle of friends and family who can help kind of coach through asking the right questions and getting those core answers. For us, it was a blend of emotional intelligence and lean startup type mentality, all the way down to lean manufacturing, 5 whys. 5 whys is very powerful in a human conversation, and it can really get to the core of what it is you're trying to provide as far as value is concerned. I'll go on a little tangent real quick. It was actually funny that you mentioned the Air Force experience in my bio, because that's in 4 months that will be 20-year-old information. But it caused me to think about how that impacted who I am today and kind of where we are on this discussion in particular. So I was a technician in the Air Force nuclear missile program. We worked on the baby birds with the big booms, cruise missiles that are launched from B-52s and carry a significant nuclear payload. Maintained a field of these missiles in North Dakota, an Air Force base about 40 miles south of the Canadian border. Little known fact, if North Dakota seceded from the Union, it would be the world's 4th largest nuclear superpower. It is the only place in the world that contains 2 of the 3 legs of the nuclear triad. And that experience, we worked on a lot of missiles, and we did a lot of work and occasionally some non-nuclear testing in the delivery systems. But what we actually provided as a unit was distinctly different from what we thought we provided, what people continue to think nuclear weapons mean to the national force. The capabilities of nuclear weapons are unnerving. But what we really provided was deterrence. It was the net effect of a security blanket that had nothing to do with the actual use. It had to do with the perceived capabilities on an international scale. So, similar to that, what we find in developing smoke alarms. We make smoke alarms, but that's not what we sell. That is our business model, is unit sales and margins. But very early in the process, we had to make a conscious decision, understanding the entire company, that this wasn't a matter of selling products, and that from a marketing perspective, this wasn't a matter of providing a sense of security. That everything that went into every phase of development for us had to focus on actually delivering safety, actually delivering security. So every feature, every ad, every change, every ECN had to come down to a single question: does this make our customers safer? And ultimately, that's what we build, that's what we sell, that's what we deliver, is a safer home. And our marketing material helps, educate customers on how our products do that, and the products themselves make sure that they deliver that on a consistent, reliable basis. But that's actually our value proposition, is a safer home. Sorry, little tangent just for fun. One of the other big things for us was challenging assumptions, especially for those who have strong EQ, who have strong empathy. It's easy to get in a position where your research validates your preconceived notions. Getting muscle memory around challenging your own assumptions was a key piece of this for us. Get to a point where you never accept anything at face value, especially something that comes from yourself, emotionally, mentally, however it comes out. Challenge absolutely everything. Force yourselves to find ways to validate it was how we kind of communicated this to the team, because it's easy to end up down a path. One of my favorite analogies was a product I built a couple of years ago for the digital signage industry, and I didn't know how to say no to feature ads, and I didn't recognize value in what we were putting together, and I had a big poster, a big printout of the car that they built in The Simpsons when Homer Simpson went to the car manufacturer, and it was like every conceivable bell and whistle, and they were like, oh, it's great, it costs $80,000. And it's easy to get down that path. It's easy to trick yourself into thinking that every value add is important, and they can be to your team. Local wins are important, but again, back to that delivering value for your customer. Is it an important feature add? And that was a tough battle for us. That's why it's taken us so long to develop, because in life safety and a life safety product, there is no MVP really. It has to work, and it has to work every time, and there is a minimum set of viable features in our product, but there is an extremely high threshold for what's acceptable in that category and what's not. The other piece that was incredibly impactful for us was understanding our customer's journey. Again, in trying to bridge that gap between hardware and software, between purpose and profit, understanding what our consumers and customers, and is everybody okay with the distinction between consumers and customers in a retail sense? Perfect example is Axe body spray. Teenage boys consume Axe body spray. A lot of soccer moms are customers of Axe body spray. They're the ones that purchase it, but they're not the ones that experience it on a regular basis. And for us, it was a key distinction. Our customers are safety conscious, have an archetype in line with heroes, protectors. They take care of their household. They're willing to invest in things to make their family safer. Everybody in a household is a consumer. Everybody, whether you ever bought a smoke alarm or not, you've likely heard one chirp in the middle of the night. You've seen one go off when you burn toast. So there was a different set of expectations, and we had to keep that clear. But understanding that path from start to finish, and if there is one recommendation I will make away from the do-it-yourself approach, because we've learned a ton by doing it on our own. One of the most valuable additions to the team we've ever had in is a gentleman by the name of Doug Powell. He runs a consulting group called Leap Insights, and Doug understands consumer journey and has a very effective method for breaking that down so that you understand it completely and that the decisions you make are in line with your customers' expectations, and it's worked incredibly well for us. And you start with the expected emotional connection from your customer, and then you start kind of walking through the journey at a macro level, and then you're able to break it down to tasks and responsibilities. Then you start looking at tools, and then you can assign, and it creates a very clear understanding from your consumer's perspective what it's like to engage with you and your product and your brand and your team, and you can set those elevated expectations for how you deliver real value to your customers. The other piece, for us getting further in as we bridge the gap between design and development and into production, one of the things we have to keep reminding ourselves is to keep listening. Those same things that got us started are the things that keep us improving. The tools get more sophisticated. When we started out, Google surveys was the greatest thing that ever happened to us. When you look at a statistically significant sample, when we had little more than a good idea and a PowerPoint presentation to be able to go in and say, in a survey of 5,000 Americans who've bought a smoke alarm in the last 2 years, they prefer ours aesthetically 2-to-1 to Nest. That's pretty powerful. To be able to go in and say, in a survey of 2,000 moms between 25 and 45, these are the key buying criteria for our category. And these are, 10 cents a response is what they used to be. I think they increased the price, but as far as a return on investment, it was the greatest thing we ever had, especially when trying to get ourselves to a point where people didn't have to take our word for it when it came to value proposition. When we started out, we were talking about a $100 smoke alarm. 3 years ago, nobody was going to buy a $100 smoke alarm. And then you wake up one day and Nest gets bought for $3.2 billion, and people start taking your ideas seriously. And then all of a sudden there's a new gold standard in the category, and it doesn't seem so out of bounds. My favorite, and this is the last one that I've got kind of on the script, and hopefully some of this will drive some conversation. The sophistication of the tools, when I talk about how evolved our tools have become, it's funny, they're not more expensive, they're not more robust, it's not greater level of reporting or accuracy. It's the fact that now that this has become something tangible, that something can experience, we're back to talking to our customers. It's not something as ethereal as, what would you want if? It's, hey, here's what we've put together, what do you think? And getting these in the hands of dozens and then hundreds and then thousands of people who can experience it firsthand and see if it meets their expectations, that's our most sophisticated tool, is people. And IoT, for us, intelligence, a smart device, is more than just a connected device. For us, it is practically impossible to sell connectivity as a value proposition. It's a useful function, but in most cases, people don't buy on function. They buy on features and benefits. And being able to translate connectivity as a function into a tangible and deliverable value proposition for our customers is a key part of how we've been able to grow the way we have. in particular, when it comes to people, and I probably wrote this down because it's relatively recent, angry people are our best resource. They really are, and here's why. Angry people are extremely critical, extremely vocal, and really important for us. When you win them over, it's a powerful moment for your business, for your team. To satisfy your most unsatisfied testers or customers is a powerful drive in the right direction. This particular gentleman that we had last night, he is relatively low on the technology understanding curve, and we have a somewhat sophisticated product that we tried to make easy to use. His first go at it was not impressive. He had a minor functional flaw, but all he saw was a broken product. And in life safety, that's all it takes. If one feature is broken, you destroy the confidence in the rest of the features. In 24 hours, with a quick OTA, over-the-air update, he was up and running, and a guy that had been on my back for months with expletive-laced texts and emails, and he's an investor, by the way. He's probably my third largest investor in the company. We won him over, and he sent me one of the greatest compliments we've ever had. It worked. It just worked, and that's all anybody expects from us. You know, do what you say you're going to do. So yeah, that's why, despite the late night texts and the heated exchanges, I love our angry people because they make us better every day. So that's all I got on the script. Hopefully that's enough to kind of demonstrate where we are, kind of how we got here. Now, more importantly, what can I do for you guys? What part of my experience has an opportunity to provide some insight? What can I tell you that nobody else will or has? What were you hoping to get out of a quick discussion on IoT? Yeah?
Do you have a process that has enabled you to get some user experience feedback? If you do, how often do you
So, yes we do. It's what's nice about an active and engaged group, especially as technically savvy as they are. Our first alphas are always internal. Everybody takes it home. We started out with Excel spreadsheets as the feedback and bug list, and since then we've evolved into more sophisticated tools. My hands are actually off that at this point. All I see are the reports that are generated, and I see feature ads come in from, to this day, I still monitor our Facebook account. If you message us on Facebook, you'll still talk to me. So I get to hear what people think and what they say. And even this week, we had one come in about volume control on the weather radio. Perfect example. I've got, the average age at our company is probably at this point about 29. 29-year-olds don't have tinnitus. 65-year-olds do. Volume sounds a lot different to other people. We had one come in around the timeout notification on one of the apps because everybody in our office runs on very high-speed internet. In rural parts of Illinois and Missouri, internet's not that fast. It takes a little longer to time something out. So I know they're using some of the more, I guess, widely accepted tools for the aggregation of the data from our beta testers and early users. I don't know what they are, though. Yes, sir.
Earlier you spoke about having an issue with, or you talked about like being someone who always challenges everything. So in a product like yours or any one of our products that we're developing, and you see something that needs to be added, but you're working with or working against a group of individuals that are refusing to change and see your vision.
Sure.
How do you fight through that or approach that in your past experience?
Did everybody hear the question okay? I can certainly repeat it. The question is if the goal is to challenge the assumptions, and if you're looking for a challenge or identify an opportunity to make an improvement, but you're seeing resistance from internal teams or external teams, how do you how do you influence, how do you persuade teammates to understand what you're trying to accomplish and why? For us in particular, I am a huge fan of don't take my word for it. You know, for perfect example was an very early version of this was actually a weather radio that replaced the base plate for a smoke alarm. So we weren't going to learn how to make smoke alarms, we were just going to add those weather alert functionalities to one. And then the challenge came. You know, is that the right path? Is that how we achieve our goals? Is that how we deliver value? And you can have conversations around it. You can have as many powwows as you want. For us, we had to put ourselves in a position where ask the customers. It doesn't matter what I think. What are our customers saying? And to this day, that's still my first challenge whenever anybody offers an improvement or feature add or subtraction. What do the users think? So, you know, in a lot of cases, there's a handful of surveys. Of course, we use the ones on Google surveys that had 1,000 or 2,000 or 5,000 results as some market justification for larger groups of people. But for a couple of bucks, you can ask 100 people, and you don't have to take my word for it anymore. You get to avoid the influencing of a group, a mob mentality, you know, leaning one way towards a winner or a loser, and you get to take your team completely out of play. For us, it's all about, does this improve the value for our customers? And if internally we can't agree, and sometimes we do universally agree, and we still ask our customers, because we can all be just as wrong as any one of us can be at one time. So it's using the tools, and if you've got a core group of users, we started out with 34 moms in 17 states that helped us in the very earliest stages of design. You know, we took aesthetics pretty seriously when it came to a smoke alarm. We felt like it was an area of improvement, and of course we had a design contest. 80 different submissions came in that were really good looking smoke alarms, and my favorite was the third one that came in. I knew I loved it from the moment I saw it, but I was willing to say it's not up to me. And we put it out to our user panel, our super panel, and said, you know, not just which ones do you like the best, which ones make it look like it works the best, which one inspires confidence, which one do you feel adds to the aesthetic appeal of your home, and with 32 of 34 moms telling me that number 3 was their favorite, it wasn't my decision anymore. It was theirs, and it made a very easy discussion internally. Sir.
As far as security goes, I know that's happened with a lot of Internet of Things, making denial of service attacks massive. Like what brought down creps on security. I already heard you say about over there updates.
Sure.
So that's definitely a good step forward on that. Have you had any issues with that? Or at least discussed?
No, we haven't had any issues with that, and you know, especially at that level, a DNS attack. I mean, there's not many levers I can pull on to make that go away. So you know, there's a certain minimum level of risk inherent with an internet-connected device. Now, we've tried to get as far away from that minimum level as possible. Again, recognizing our strengths in creating products that deliver value. We knew that our strength was not going to be in home brewing an IoT backend. So we actually partnered with Xively, which was a LogMeIn partner. I've been working with Xively for over 10 years using their remote monitoring and management products, so I knew the level of security that they had in place. I knew how low the overhead was for their software, and for me it felt like a natural fit to at least look at for IoT. And in the end, it was their security that ultimately won us over. We genuinely felt like it was the most secure option with the least amount of work and intervention from our team. Sir?
You guys started using the cellular network instead of wireless, internet wireless to make it more secure, kind of like how security companies are doing down there?
Sure. So the question was wireless. You know, do we intend to use cellular? There are certain applications, specific applications that are being sought by some of the larger partners that could have a cellular wireless connection, but for us, it's not a very high priority. In fact, a very low priority for us. when we do that initial customer analysis, what does our customer look like? Somebody that pays $100 for a connected smoke alarm probably has Wi-Fi, probably likes it a lot, it's probably pretty fast. So when it went to what we would consider a mass adoption product, we went with what we consider the stable and highly available wireless technologies. Wi-Fi and Zigbee were our two choices. When you stack up connected home platforms, the device was built to work as well by itself or with connected home platforms. We wanted it to work with at least 95% of the available connected home platforms. When you combine Wi-Fi connectivity with Zigbee connectivity, there's not many Z-Wave only type hubs out there. So one way or the other, we're going to be able to connect. When we do look forward at connectivity options, we do think, especially in our case, in connected sensors, that some of the long-range, low-power wireless solutions like LoRaWAN and Sigfox actually hold the most promise. When you're trying to send video or audio or even heavy messaging, it's terrible. It's got low bandwidth, but it's got long range. And for us, if the number one challenge is how do we create products that save lives, most of those come down to a go, no-go type identification. Is this a problem or is it not? And in those cases, those long-range wireless options make a lot more sense for us. We've been fortunate to engage with those technologies early. In fact, we're one of only 2 companies in the world that have created a LoRaWAN smoke alarm. And they continue to gain traction, get interest. I think they were recently partnered with or sold a minority stake to Comcast, and there's an expectation that they're rolling that out to major metro areas. So when you've got telecom providers willing to put the infrastructure in place that can connect thousands of end nodes of a low-cost, long-range, super low-power wireless connectivity, in a go, no-go situation, those are our best options. Yes, sir.
So I just want to make sure I understand correctly. So the smoke alarms have AA batteries, right? I think what you said, 2 batteries.
So the Halo 1, which was our humanitarian product, yes, two L93 lithium batteries.
So if the power goes out, they'll use battery power. I assume when the power goes out, the Wi-Fi would also go down. So what does the alarm do at that point, no Wi-Fi?
Sure. So it's important to kind of draw the distinction between Halo, our consumer product in the U.S., which is Wi-Fi, and Zigbee. It's hardwired with a rechargeable battery. And then the Halo 1 product was the one that was solely battery powered. It's completely off-grid, including the head end, and it runs on 2 AA batteries. So that device is built to run completely off-grid. So there was about 1,000 end nodes that were initially installed. We had redundant head ends, both solar powered with gateways and then gateway to cell connections through Orange, one through Safaricom. So those were built to exist on their own in its entirety. The only reliance they have is that solar panel keeps working and delivers a level of efficiency to keep the battery charged, and that the cellular provider maintain the connection to that gateway. So those don't have the same issues. When it comes to the Halo and Halo Plus, you're absolutely right. And that's a part of that kind of fun fringe case identification during product development. When power goes out, there was a question around which features do we keep on in the device, and Wi-Fi is a big consumer of power, even in a fairly and a mostly sleep type state. But it made sense that if your power goes out to your smoke alarms, if you've got hardwired smoke alarms and power goes out, it is an extremely reasonable assumption that the power to your router went out, or the power to your modem. So it was easy to elect to turn Wi-Fi off in that case. For Halo Plus, that was a key driver in the technology selection for the weather radio component. So these are alerts that come in based on your geography and your preferences for alerts and which severity, so watch, warning, or advisory. When you look at how a tornado affects a town, infrastructure failure is one of the first things you can expect. You can expect power to go out, you can expect internet to go down. So IP-based delivery of those alerts is essentially useless in the most necessary of situations. So we actually build a full weather radio into the smoke alarm. So it's got RF communication with the local NOAA, National Weather Service radio broadcast, And even in the event of infrastructure failure, because there's a local battery backup at the tower and it's got a 40-mile range and most metro areas are triangulated by 3 towers, even in infrastructure failure, you can continue to get these emergency weather or environmental warnings up to several days after a catastrophic event.
Would you broadcast, I think I heard one of the selling features was if there's a fire, you broadcast some type of emergency signal to local groups such as fire?
So that was a key part of the Kenya product that we put together, because there is no 911. So identifying that there's a fire is half the battle, and that's an important piece of it. And I'll go a little bit into why that matters so much. This is the bottom 1 billion of the economic population, people that on average live on less than $4 a day. They work incredibly hard for what they have, and what they have is incredibly valuable to them. Everything they own in this planet is in this small building that is right next to their neighbors, and right next to their neighbors, and right next to their neighbors, and packed with an incredible density. And then, there's no kitchen stove, there's no furnace, there's a fire that burns, and they cook over it, they read by it, and it heats when it gets cold. When a fire breaks out in these neighborhoods, in the informal settlements, on average, it will destroy between 400 and 400 homes. So imagine somebody, the next township over, with an unattended cooking fire that takes away everything material you own. That's what we're up against. Community policing, providing a localized alert that gives people an opportunity to address something locally is incredibly beneficial, but we wanted to take that a step further and be able to offer those community resources, the things that the people have when you live in the gated and fenced communities, and offer those to absolutely everybody. So being able to transmit that information to somebody that could professionally intervene was a key part of that. So we had to not just identify a technology solution, but a holistic approach from identifying a fire to putting out a fire and everything in between. Yes, sir.
You looked at using satellite networks for those types of applications for
So we did take a look at it from a cost and a speed of implementation perspective. Cellular networks made the most sense. We were in highly dense, low-income urban environments where cellular coverage was not a problem. When the second order came in between the Kenya Red Cross, UNICEF, and UN, it was to place the sensors in the Dadaab refugee settlement, which prior to the Syrian crisis was the single largest refugee settlement in the world. They have the same concerns as the other high-density, low-income, informal settlements and slums. So in that case, cellular connectivity was much less an option. Ultimately, the Kenya Red Cross wanted to use a localized alert system, since there are professionals who can intervene in that localized situation. A local alert was enough for that community. Again, to be able to put all this together in 60 days took a lot of what's available right now, what can I get? And when trying to determine an international cell service plan and getting a SIM card over, it was actually a lot easier to do that through the cell companies than anything else. How are we doing on time? Man, these go fast. Yeah.
One more question. Were there any big surprises for you as you were exploring the heroes / consumer journey?
Always. Yeah.
What were some of those?
Let's see, biggest surprise in identifying the journey. The depth. You move so fast, and you're trying to get as much as you can done with limited time, energy, and resources. But if you can dedicate, a couple hours or a couple of days for your whole team, when you start extracting ideas and concepts, and what are your buying triggers? What are the things that matter to you when it comes to communication? What do you expect out of a brand? What do you expect out of a product? even as a startup, I'm a big fan of process, and documentation is a key part of how we're able to do what we do and keep it repeatable for the next set of products. So, we've got Gantt charts on firmware development, we've got Gantt charts on production preparation, we've got Gantt charts on testing and certification. So on one wall, I've got 4 different Gantts that operationally tell us where we are. On the opposite wall, it's a 16-foot wide piece of paper that's 4 feet tall that is jam-packed with the customer touch point. Every single point at which somebody engages, identifies, educates, buys, experiences, and advocates for our product. And I say that that's one of the most critical pieces of our journey for that very reason. You move what you measure, right? So how do we reduce the number of blind spots we have? And I was fascinated with how many customer touch point blind spots we had until we went through that process.
Yes.
That's one last question.
Sure.
So I'm just curious to know how your process or your approach changed with respect to another culture or another, like when your international experience through the Red Cross, did you use ethnography? Did you have support through the Red Cross? How did you manage that? Because it's completely different.
Yeah, we were incredibly fortunate in that experience in particular. We had to do a lot of really good guessing early on. But once we'd already designed, developed, and deployed the product, then we found out that Frog and IDEO were both involved in the process, and they had a ton of research that came back and validated a lot of the early guesses, the 90% guesses that we had to make. Yeah, the most unique piece of that was we tried to stick to what we considered universal truths, things that transcend societies, economic classes, experiences. That's why we love what we do. Safety, security, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? We are at the base. There's nobody there's a much smaller portion of the population that's walking around going, I don't need to be safe. Especially, once you have a family, your priorities change. Safety and security become incredibly important, and that stayed universal. One of the key learnings that came from, we sent 2 team members over to deployment. I went back after deployment for the after-action review with a lot of our global partners. About 80 global partners were a part of that when it was all said and done. And the most fascinating thing that came out of actually talking to our users, talking to community leaders, talking to people who had experienced carbon monoxide or fire deaths in these communities and who were helping rebuild and understood what it meant, was a notion that continues to stick with me, and it was great on a global scale, and it was great in that environment, and I consider it now a fundamental truth. The communities have a lot of outreach. There are a lot of humanitarian efforts and organizations that are trying to contribute to improve the lives of the less fortunate and the at-risk. But as I mentioned, these people work hard and they value what they have, and they would come to the table and very appreciative of the efforts of these global organizations. But there was a statement, and I won't butcher it in translation, I'll just give you the English version. It was nothing about us without us. And it's probably the greatest summarization of engaging your customers in this journey as early as possible, getting their feedback, getting their input, because whether it is in informal settlements and slums in Cape Town, South Africa, or whether it's in suburban homes outside of Dallas, it's not all that different. They want to be involved in the process. They want to feel like that value you're delivering was something they asked for, not something you forced on them. All right, I'm gonna stick around for a couple minutes. If there's any follow-ups, feel free to reach out to me anytime. I'm not hard to find online. Thank you again, Michelle, for inviting me.